I am so excited to have you on Hey Docs. I cannot tell you, I've been waiting for you to be on the show. And I know that our listeners are super excited to hear from you and hear about Grin. So as we get started, like I always like to do you mind just kind of diving in a little bit of how you got to where you're at? Of course, you started in an orthodontic practice and then developed, a company, and you've got lots of patents and whatnot. So why don't you take us down memory lane a little bit?
Sure. As well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah.
I'm always excited to have any conversation with you, recorded or not. But it's funny because as I do a lot of these, what I've noticed is over time, I have to add a year or two onto each time I say, well, years ago, and it's getting longer and longer and harder to remember. But yes, as you mentioned, orthodontist, born and bred, I guess. I graduated back in 2003. So I've been doing this for about 19 years now. Opened up my own practice straight out of the gate. I remember throughout dental school and throughout my orthodontic residency, I was working for a mentor of mine, an orthodontist, and he turned to me and he goes, Adam, you need to open up your own practice because you have your own ideas and I'm not even ready for them. I would love to have you on board, but we would just be, I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yep.
Best advice that I've ever got. And so I opened up from scratch a de novo orthopedo practice. So the interesting thing there is that I love that in today's day and age, it is so normal to be opening up orthopedos, right?
Yes.
Back then, I did not know of any others. And in fact, I had many mentors and many of my instructors in my program saying, are you insane? You're biting off the hand that feeds you. Nobody's going to refer into you. This doesn't make any sense. And, at the end of the day, we see, 20 years later, what's been going on with the market. And it was, in fact, a very, very good move. But I will say one thing that I do tend to talk to young doctors that are getting out of their programs now and thinking about this. The one thing to realize is if you are opening up with a de novo pedo, you will not see patients from that pediatric practice for a number of years.
Yes.
Something I didn't account for, right? So,
right.
You've got your pediatric dentist that opens up, and if they're the new guy or gal in town, they're probably starting to see the 2 and 3-year-olds, which, a lot of orthodontists these days like to do a lot of early phase ones, but maybe
not that early.
Exactly. And so it's one thing that you really have to consider where great idea. Perfect ideal would be if you could find a pediatric office that's already been open. But for me, what it meant was, and again, this is going back a very, very long time. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have Instagram. So it meant me sitting around and playing bomb sweeper all day. Do you remember bomb sweeper?
Yes.
So, imagine me sitting there in this practice that I had just built out, meaning debt, right?
Yes.
Playing, Minesweeper all day. And thinking about I need to start figuring out a way to drive patients through my doors. And if you think about the timing, this was 2003. Invisalign had just come to market. We were still in a world where orthodontists were like, this is a GP tool. We don't want to use it. But what I realized very, very quickly is that, what this is showing me is that there's a phenomenal untapped adult market. And what I started doing is actually going after that adult market and doing so in a pedo ortho practice, which was a little bit interesting.
I love it.
Right. But I was like, I've got to figure out a way. I'm the new kid on the block. I'm a young doctor. I opened up with pedo, so I'm not getting as many referrals as I would like to. I've got to wait for the pediatric practice to mature enough to actually be a solid referral base. So I've got to go essentially directly to the market, to consumers and say, hey, I'm here. This is what I can do for you. Yeah. So I went forward with that. And this was, again, at a time where although Invisalign had just hit the market, not a lot of people were talking to adults. And I was very fortunate in that I had some really, really good mentors and instructors who also taught me a little bit about lingual orthodontics. And I just gravitated towards that because, you had adults going after aesthetics with aligners, but not being successful back then.
Right.
We just, and I'm not even going to blame aligners. Honestly, we didn't know how to move teeth with plastic at that point.
Right. It was still very, very new to everybody. Absolutely.
To all of us. And we were thinking about it as moving teeth with brackets and wires, which of course is a wrong way to think about it.
Right.
I started learning a lot of lingual orthodontics, really dived in deep. And before you know it, fast forward 5 years, fast forward 7 years, my practice was booming with adults. And as the pediatric practice then started to mature, so I had this, we'll call
savings
it
account,
practice, and then boom, and then suddenly it started to really, really fly. It was around that time that a lot of my adults, it was getting busy, especially in the square footage that we had. And a lot of my adults were saying to me, Adam, we love coming here and all of that. We live here. This practice was in New Jersey, but we are coming home from our day in the city, in New York City, and we've got to kind of grab that last appointment of the day. It would be great if you opened up in New York City. And so right there, as that boom happened in my New Jersey practice, I opened up in New York City because I actually did it not just to go after a new market, but almost to offload some of the patient population, the adults that I didn't have enough space, right?
Yeah.
And so this is where I started thinking a lot about efficiencies and about how we're running the practice and how valuable chair time is from us, not just from a perspective of how much does chair time cost, but how much I make per hour of chair time.
Yes.
And it was at that time when I did the math, almost worth it to open up a second satellite location that can take care of a lot of those adults that were coming into my New Jersey practice while they were at work during the day, and open up a substantial amount of chair time for the pediatric patients that were now flowing through. Right.
I love where your brain was going with this. That's, what an innovator to be thinking about that and going, okay, how can I do this different? Because people weren't doing that, even thinking that way. I don't think too much. So keep the story going.
Well, I will say about that, my parents would tell you that I always did the opposite of what they told me. So maybe there's a little bit of that there. It's a middle child thing, I think. I don't know. But so here I am. I open up a New York City practice. I have a New Jersey practice. My New York City practice then just really skyrocketed, especially around then with lingual and doing aligners. We were basically 100% aesthetic orthodontics. Every patient walking through my door was digital in a way. And this is going back to 2007, right? Because at the time, the lingual system that I used was Incognito, which was essentially, digital to some extent. The setup, you had an indirect bonding tray, et cetera. And then I was using aligners over there as well. And, this is where it ended up being a really, really sweet spot in the city where a lot of adults were looking for solutions. A lot of adults were jumping on board the aligner bandwagon and not having such great results and then looking for something different. It just, right place, right time. If you ever listen to Guy Raz podcast, how I built this, he always asks, every single founder, he always says at the end, or asks them at the end, so how much of this do you attribute to luck and how much do you attribute to, skill, knowledge, gumption, et cetera? And, I think that when it comes to luck, especially, where we're talking specifically about this situation where I think right place, right time, I think it's also doing the right thing at the right place in the right time, right?
Yes.
Like you look at something on the back end and decide it was lucky. But had you not grabbed that opportunity by the horns, it would have just been a missed opportunity. You never would have said, oh, I was lucky, because that just wouldn't have come to fruition. So I think about that a lot. And I think about, when I speak to a lot of my colleagues and they have opportunities and they're like, should I, shouldn't I? Orthodontists, we're definitely going to get into talking about innovation and things like that. But orthodontists tend to be top of their class. A+ students, which means that we are very, very good at thinking within the box. And sometimes that becomes a problem, right? When we're really looking at innovation, right? Orthodontists tend to want to do what other orthodontists are doing. They want to do what a guru is telling them to do. They really were successful in our lives because we got the A's and the A+, because we knew which boxes to check, all within the box that society or school or
little bit of that,
just a little bit, right? And so the one thing I always try to push my colleagues to do is to take more chances, because worst case scenario, it ends up being a lesson, not a regret, a lesson, right? It ends up being something that you learn from. And then the next time you take a chance, you also have the history and the education from the last one, and you do it a little bit different, a little bit better. But to not do it and to miss that opportunity, and then that leads to regret, et cetera, so I'm always one, take the chances. But, you asked about Grin and where it all started. The reason I led up with all of that is because Grin really started in my practice in New York City as soon as Smile Direct Club hit the market. Mm-hmm. And, looking at Smile Direct Club now and looking at, they're basically a penny stock. It's amazing. I was
it went up and it went down.
I was joking the other day. I said, if a bunch of us orthos got together, we can actually buy a majority share of Smile Direct Club and shut it down. But you don't need to, because they're doing a good enough job on their own of
right.
all the way down. But the funny thing is, back then, nobody knew this. Everybody was very nervous about it. I always did talk about that patient life cycle, and that as soon as more and more patients were getting to the end of the life cycle and not getting treated the way they were supposed to, I knew that this was the direction Smile Direct Club would go. But what was happening is New York City, Soho, was Smile Direct Club's first scan shop. I always joke about this. I say it's really funny because Smile Direct Club came to market talking about access to care. They opened up on the most expensive block in New York City, where even as an orthodontist, I couldn't afford anything in the store's neighborhood. Soho.
Right, right.
And so when patients were going through their scan shop and now in treatment and having a bad experience, they would pull out their mobile device and type in orthodontist NYC. I ended up getting them in my chair. Mm-hmm. And it was day after day after day where I was seeing about 9-10 new patient consults a day.
Wow.
Every single one of them was a Smile Direct Club patient. Like it was just insane. And, most of us were yelling and screaming, the AO.
So afraid. Right. Yep.
What I wanted to understand, it wasn't about yelling and screaming, but it was like, I turned to all of these patients. At the end of the day, it was about 380 patients because we did market research on these patients. I gave them a discount for treatment. In exchange, they were to give me their time. We did what we call qualitative and quantitative market research with them, where we had them fill out surveys and we had a bunch of them do interviews, right? Because I was trying to understand where that switch in their brain went off, that they said, oh yeah, I could do this without a doctor. I could do this from home, no problem.
Yes. Right? Oh, that's great. I mean, to just even be thinking, how do I get that data? Turn it into, with what something you've got. Yes.
Right? It was like, I was going to probably give them a discount anyway. I felt bad for them. Right. Mm-hmm. But so I was like, let me see what I can get out of this. And let me start building some data on what is going through their minds. Across the board, it was not about money. It was about convenience. It was just one after the other after the other. And, many may have heard me talk about this one story, but I love it so much. There was an ER physician in my chair, and we're in New York, so we talk to each other very casually, as you know. Yep. I don't want to curse too much, but there were definitely some curse words involved. But, I turned to him and I literally said to him, WTF, dude, like, you're a doctor, you're a physician. What were you thinking when you decided to do this crap, right?
Right.
And he looked at me without a beat, and he's like, Adam, I'm an ER doc. I do 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on. That's my shift. So basically, out of a given week, I have 24 hours to myself. Mm-hmm. I want to be sitting on my couch, watching Netflix and scrolling through Tinder. I don't want to be coming to see you.
Right.
And
what an epiphany, like, there to be like, that is the underlying thing. I would bet that you learned from all of them is
from all of it. It was all matter somehow of convenience. And I meet so many of our colleagues where there's like, oh, well, Adam, that's the way it's in New York City. But, I'm out here in Arkansas and my patients want to see me. And I'll go into the practice and I'll say, do you mind if I just talk to a couple of your patients? Yeah, sure. Right. Go to the patient. I'm like, hey, if you could come see this amazing doctor who you love, but half the time, would you be willing to do that? And all you need to do is check in through a device on your phone, and they're like, Doc, we love you, but hell yeah, sign me up, right?
Yes, it's just like we want Starbucks, but I don't really need to go through the drive-through if I can order it up on my phone, And I know that's like a crude analogy, but it's the same thing. We're just a society that's busy, and that's why I've loved what you've done with Grin. And I'm going to let you keep going here, but I 100% working with startups, working with new practices, just being in the industry of seeing where change is going this is exactly what our patients are asking for and looking for.
Hell yeah. I mean, the crazy thing is my kids don't want to get on a phone with somebody to the extent that they have their own favorite pizza place in town. Yep. If I say to them, yeah, order a pie, this pizza place doesn't do Grubhub, Uber Eats, whatever. They will rather go through Grubhub and Uber Eats and things like that and go to their not favorite place than pick up a phone and actually speak to the guy and say, can I have a pie? Right? Like, yeah. But this is the reality of our society today. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this was where I was sitting there with this epiphany, and I was realizing that I have educated, financially stable patients in care who didn't do this because of I wanted the cheapest or I didn't want to pay an orthodontist, but rather I don't have time in my life to do all this. And this wasn't just the adults, it was the parents too, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I also often talk about how we as orthodontists are so proud of ourselves where a child comes in, we quickly change their O-ties, and we get them out of the chair in 5 minutes. And we're so proud. And we walk to the waiting room with the child in hand and turn to mom like, look, we got you in and out of here in 5 minutes.
And she's like, what?
Are you kidding me?
Exactly.
I just out of school. I ran through traffic.
Yes.
I looked for parking for 5 minutes, right?
Right.
This is the reality that I think we all need a little bit of a reality check. Some of us get it. Some of us are still kind of holding on. But on top of that, and I know we're kind of talking about the story and getting into where we are today, but it's important. On top of that, the other piece of it is that, and this isn't just coming from me as a CEO of Grin and as a user, but from the doctors that are using Grin, colleagues. They're like, we are treating patients better than we have before. We have a better connection with our patients than we had before because these patients are communicating with us the way they communicate with their friends through the mobile device, texting when they need. It's a whole different world, right?
Right.
I have a doctor in rural Virginia who said to me, he's like, Adam, I love this. I'm going to use it here. I'm going to use it here. But I don't know about every patient because, we're really about family and the patient, experience. He texted me a screenshot of his conversation with a high school kid. And I guess the team was the Cougars or whatever. And the kid sent in their scan. The doctor was like, how was the game? The kid's like, oh my God, it was so great, sending photos of the game back to the doctor. And he's like, Adam, oh my God, this is such a win, right?
Right.
Just, you're actually giving the patients what they want, and you're giving them a much better experience because you're bringing it back to the way they want to experience everything in their world, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So here I was, going through all of this qual and quant market research with all these patients, and I was realizing we need to do something. I've been involved with a lot of different innovation in orthodontics, but all of it was about the tool that we used.
Yes.
And I often talk to doctors, and I had this one lecture. It was the first Pearls lecture. It was one of my favorite talks that I did because the day ran long. So I was kind of like the cleanup hitter. And it bled into cocktail hour. So I said, guys, can we just do the cocktails while I'm here on stage? And I gave the lecture with a bottle of beer in my hand. And I was like, best lecture ever. Everybody that wants me to speak from now on should give me a bottle of beer, and I promise it'll be great. But it was literally talking about how it was called Be the Master, Not the Tool, right? We have all of these tools that we use, but it's about us as an orthodontist. And so when I started thinking about also innovation, we had been innovating on the tools, but never on the patient journey, never on actually starting to think, okay, this is how we've been doing things for 50, 100 plus years. And now we have all of these great new tools that should allow us to change the way we were doing things, but we weren't. people talk about the plastic employee, but how many orthodontists actually implement truly efficiencies of a plastic employee in their practice?
Right.
When you marry something like aligners, something like digital orthodontics with something like Grin, that's when you start seeing the efficiencies that are inherent in the tools that we're using, but not doing it through this new patient journey. So when I started thinking around that, at the time, because I was doing a lot of incognito, I had a lot of patients coming in from all over the world to see me. I would be Skyping with them. So it was before FaceTime, before or anything like that. And I was like, how do I leverage something like that? And the funny story about where the Grin scope happened was I was thinking about, okay, Skype is on my laptop at the time. I'm like, it would be great if we can do something on the mobile device. I'm like, but I want to get into the mouth. When a patient is looking at us and doing this, it doesn't do anything for me, right? Remember back in the day, people were using the spoons and all of that? I'm taking it like, so the patient went ahead and did all of this, and you have to give them an educated opinion, but you can't really see anything. And it was the worst. So I was like, I need to be able to get into the mouth. So I'm in the shower where the best thinking ever happens, right?
Absolutely.
Be real. I'm in the shower or on the toilet, one or the other. And I'm sitting in the shower and suddenly it hits me. And I jump out of the shower like dripping wet. And I grab the toilet paper roll and I unroll the toilet paper from it. And you know that cardboard tube?
Yes.
I'm like, let me try this. And I put the cardboard tube against my phone and I put it in my mouth and I took a video. And I was like, oh my God, not ideal, but this is something, right?
Oh, I love it.
And that's actually where it came from. Like literally it was created in the bathroom from a toilet paper tube. Obviously then we had to hire engineers and all of that other stuff and take it to where it needed to be. But that's where the initial consult came from. It came from. It was about when I was looking at what was going on the market, what the feedback that I was getting from these patients, that the one thing orthodontists are not giving them is convenience, realizing that we had these great tools that would theoretically make the journey a lot more efficient and convenient, but we weren't utilizing them and implementing them the right way. And I needed to layer on some way that we can do so.
Yeah,
essentially where it was all born.
Oh, it's such a great story, and to just kind of see how this evolved, but also to see how this evolved and really picking up what our patients are asking for. And I think that's been the hardest thing for a lot of doctors to get on board with. And, kind of like we were talking about, there's a little bit of that tunnel vision. We'll follow the leaders, or we'll do our own, we'll kind of follow our way down that track. And like you said, we've got the technology there and we're all trying to utilize it, but really taking a step back to say, gosh, what are our patients wanting out of us? And we've seen this evolution from nobody wants a phone call anymore. Like, why are we communicating with patients over the phone anymore when they want to be texted and emailed? I think this just falls right into patients want their time back. All of us want our time back. And if we can do what you've done with Grin and say, hey, you can still get an amazing treatment from me. You're actually probably going to be more connected to my practice than you are coming in every 8 weeks, just when you're in and you're out and, that 5-minute appointment potentially. I love that. I just love how you have taken this and said, there's a need. And now, we can see for sure there's a need. And the other thing that I really like a lot is we've got a lot of generations in our practices right now. And it isn't just the millennial generation that this applies to. I mean, we've got Gen Zs, but we still have boomers in our practice. And even those, and I'm sure you can speak to this, even they are the ones who can get on board with this. So it isn't like, oh, well, my practice really doesn't fit this or, doesn't go that way. So thank you for having this moment that has brought, Grin to our industry, because this is, in my opinion, the future of where our practices are going and how we meet patient need. So here's what I want to talk a little bit about. I know that a lot of docs are like, okay, I'm hearing it. I'm getting the sense that, yep, I think I could do, something like this. But how does that impact the practice? Let's just talk a little bit about the impact of monitoring from maybe appointments to bottom line to workflow. We've talked a little bit about the patient experience, but I think that's always maybe our door sometimes is getting our team members on board. It feels very overwhelming. I talk to docs all the time and they're like, Jill, I want to do this, but I don't have the time to implement, or I don't even know where to start.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how did you do it? And how are you guys encouraging docs and team members to get over that hurdle?
Fantastic. Great question. And you're so right? I hear this literally on the daily. I think I have 2 conversations coming up this afternoon with doctors that have reached out to me. And this happens, like I said, every other day. Adam, this looks amazing, but I got to talk to you about how to implement, right? We're so worried about rocking the boat, because here's a sad but true, but also awesome thing. We're all successful. We have great practices. Even the practices that are not what we really want them to be, we're still doing better than most of the world. Like we all have to stop taking ourselves so seriously and thank our patients and our family and our practices and our hard work for putting us where we are today. So it's the kind of thing that even when doctors have pain points, they still don't love the idea of rocking the boat, because there is still a significant measurable success happening, right? And the funny thing is, the reason I built Grin the way I built Grin, or my team did anyway, the mantra that I had from the very, very beginning was keep it simple, stupid, right? KISS.
Yes.
Guys, at the time there were other things out on the market, right? And the problem was what the other company on the market was a aligner tool. That's what it was. That's how it was built. And I went to the team. I'm like, that's not what I want. I actually want, like, we have PMS, practice management software. I said, this is a patient management platform.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's not about monitoring. It's not about remote consultation. It's not about, texting your patients, a communication platform. It's about all of that. It's a patient management platform. And that's what we want to build out. And it's got to be something, you mentioned all of the different, whether it's a boomer, whether it's a Gen Z. I said, I want, whether it's a 78-year-old, whether it's a 6-year-old, for them to pick it up off the counter, be able to pop it in their mouth and use it simply. It's got to be an unbelievable user experience, right? And that's the way we built it. Everybody likes to talk about Steve Jobs and Apple and the simplicity that within a couple of clicks, you can figure it out on your own. And that was my goal. So when it comes to implementation, it's not a difficult thing to implement. And I have doctors doing it in different ways. The way a lot of doctors are doing it is the day of bonding, whether it's attachments, whether it's brackets and wires, instead of OHI, oral hygiene instruction, which usually takes 10 minutes to do, what they do is they actually do Grin instruction. So they give the patient, the patient's downloaded the app, or mom has while the bonding's going on. They do Grin instruction. Their OHI, like in my practice, we've created a couple of YouTube videos. You just pull those YouTube videos into the chat box in Grin, and the patient now has all of them on their phone.
It's right there. It's right there.
And they can access it for their entire treatment. So it's not about, oh yeah, that's right, at the bonding you told me how to brush my teeth, but now I forgot. No, it's there in your phone.
Right.
So we're not taking additional time to do it. Now, I have other practices that have gone a step further. We have a lot of practices that are having a lot of success with virtual consults, meaning patient comes to the website. We have a pretty long wait list for an in-person consult. We know we don't want that. People want immediacy. They click virtual consult. They get a scope drop shipped to their house. They take a scan at home. And now, as an orthodontist, you can do an asynchronous remote consult where you can do it at the end of your day, in the beginning of the day, whatever, asynchronous, and you actually can see inside the mouth. So you can see everything you need to see in order to do so. So those practices have now taken it a step further, whereby if a patient comes in for an in-person consult, our TCs usually have about an hour. Well, it doesn't usually take an hour.
Yep.
Right? Let's be real.
Yep.
So that's another opportunity where a lot of practices part of record taking when a new patient walks through the door is getting a patient on Grin, taking a scan. And this way, when the doctor's presenting, you don't just have still images that you're showing. You actually have the video that this patient just took of their own teeth. And even better, patient is walking away from your practice, even if they haven't signed up, with their video in their phone. Yes. And aside from text and email, you can push notifications to them through Grin. So when you have a pending patient, you have another means of communicating with them because you now have an app on this patient's phone that you can talk to the patient.
Yes. And I just want to take a minute and have the audience like just absorb what you just said, because this is next level experience with patients. This should be where we're looking. When you think about it, you've got an app on their phone. Everybody lives on their phone. It's not just they're going to your website. They've got an app that's communicating with them. They're walking home and talking to their friends and being like, look how cool this is. You've got not only you've got that video. I love to hear this. And again, when we're thinking about as doctors and team members out there, that positioning platform of, does this make you different than maybe somebody else in the community? I think it does. And it's getting at patients the way every other industry is communicating with patients. You go to your hair salon, your nail salon, your, this, that, and the other. We're getting texts. We got apps. We've got, all of this. So I just had to like take a second there, because this is where we're going. This is what we should be thinking about and getting out of that, kind of that old brick and mortar. This is the only way we communicate, with a phone, with an email at the end of an appointment, which is great. And we all have to start somewhere, but this is next level, guys. This is where it's at.
I love that you see it. And what the crazy thing here is that I have patients in our own practice, and I can speak for colleagues that are utilizing as well, where when the TC is doing this, and then the patient has you in their phone, they haven't signed up yet, and then they're seeing it. And then the TC describes how, oh yeah, because of this technology, we're going to be more connected with you.
Yes.
You have better oversight, better responsible care. But guess what, mom? You don't have to rush in here every month, right? What ends up happening is moms turn to the TC and say, ooh, I want that. How much extra is that? Mm-hmm. And we're like, oh, no. That's how we do treatment now.
Yes.
For you. Right?
Yes.
So that's like the epiphany. And from a doctor's perspective of pains of onboarding a new technology, that was all done in the TC room in under 5 minutes. It's helped your sale. It's helped your conversion. It connects the pending patients with your practice. And now when the patient starts treatment, they're already onboarded. They're already on Grin. They already expect for this to be going on. And it doesn't even take away clinical time. And on top of that, now that we've layered on our HI, our human intelligence component, we have a team that will take all of it off of your team if you'd like, which means that when a patient sends in a scan, we have a team that will review that scan and respond to the patient.
Wow.
Everybody always asks, and I love talking about it. Do you have AI? Do you have AI? We do have AI. But my concept of AI is that it's phenomenal. AI is what runs the algorithm initially when you send your aligner company your setup. But guess what? You as a doctor never approved that first setup. So why would we let AI talk to our patient directly? We need to check on AI. So Grin, having HI, having human intelligence factor, we run AI. Our HI team reviews it, and then a human talks to your human patient.
Again, great. I mean, just like, boom, that's so good.
I think it's just because we come at it from, I'm a doctor, so I understand, number one, how I want my patients to be treated, how I want things to run in my practice. If I just had an AI running yes, no for patients, what ends up happening is, what happens when that patient then sends me a text? We still have to respond to that text. And what happens when the AI says no, but I look at them like, I'd let you go. And then the patient's like, wait, but the AI said no. And now there's more confusion. So here it's our virtual team learns from the doctor and the practice the first 2 weeks exactly how this practice likes to do things, and can then run all of the patients. If something needs to be then elevated to a clinician, then they'll ping the clinician. But this way, you don't even have to worry about even responding to the patients. We have a team that'll do that. Wow. So we're taking everything off of your plate. So this concept that orthos build up in our minds about, oh, I don't want to rock the boat. It's going to be so difficult.
I don't want to give somebody else too much more work duties,
I get all of that. And that's why we built it this way, right? You'll onboard the patient in the TC room. Once the patient's onboarded, we take it from there, minimal time. And over the first 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, depending on what your cadence is now, as you're able to now push those patients out, suddenly you look at your schedule and you're like, wait a minute, my schedule is emptying out.
This is exactly what I've been talking about, this 12 by 12 plus 1. Let's get to a point where you get your schedule time back, where when we're in front of patients, we're 100% on board. We've got days that we can actually work on our business while we're in the business and not have to take it home. And if we can push those appointments out exactly like what you're saying, it allows us to have days that give us production time. And I always say this to offices, a busy day is just a busy day unless you've got starts or new patients going on in your books. So if we can spread it out, and utilize the Grin system or, systems out there, that's what we should be doing. So you were talking a lot about artificial intelligence. Let's talk about the other one, augmented intelligence. Tell me a little bit about that, because I know there's, a little scuttlebug out there about all of this. Let's talk about that for a minute. Since we're talking about intelligence.
That's exactly what we run, basically, right? So when you look at healthcare, 5 years ago, AI was a very big thing. AI meaning artificial intelligence. And what happened, and this is in healthcare, medical, running, AI, artificial intelligence, looking at mammograms, radiographs, things like that. What they've realized is you need to put a human in that picture. It doesn't have to be all run by a human. So artificial intelligence plus a human being is augmented intelligence. And that's essentially what we're doing. AI, artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence is too confusing. We layered on that, just the terminology of human intelligence, but our human intelligence is augmented by artificial intelligence. And that's where we're running augmented.
Perfect. So when somebody's hearing that human intelligence or augmented, we know it's the same thing. And that's what you're saying. That's great, because I feel like sometimes there's a little bit of confusion about, what does that mean? Or so thanks for clarifying that.
Absolutely. And what I hear a lot out there is, oh, wait a minute, AI. And a lot of times I'll say to the doctor first, even before I respond to them, yes, we use it and this is how we use it and it's even better. I'll say, what does that mean to you? And they're like, I don't actually know. I was just told I need to know about AI. So it's important to understand, because at the end of the day, what's important to us is, like we've just been talking about, is this going to take extra time, or is it, now, no matter what, monitoring and everything that we're talking about here saves you time. But there is a gap, right? During the first, let's say, 6 weeks, until you're starting to get to the point where those patients were pushed off, those are the rough weeks if you're running it all yourself as a practice. And that's why we layered on this augmented or HI, because this way Grin has a team that will do all of that for you. And it's not even a matter of responding to patients for what they call a go, no go. It's responding to anything. We have our virtual coordinators, our HI. If the patient types, hey, when's my next appointment? Well, they're on a WhatsApp or a Slack or directly through Grin, getting to the front desk and saying, when's their next appointment? Front desk responds, boom, they respond back to the patient. It never even needs to pass by the doctor, never needs to pass by the clinical coordinator. Our team, our HI team, all right now are more than 20 years each in orthodontics. One of them is over 30 years in orthodontics.
Wow.
So we're talking about the top line assistants who now have decided they don't want to be clinical anymore in the mouth. They want to work from home. That's who we're hiring. That's the team that we're building out. And it's been fantastic so far, because they become part of the practice. Funny story. So my HI coordinator, her name is Debbie. She's phenomenal. Many have met her. She was actually at the AAO. And I have patients coming into my practice saying, we have got to meet Debbie. And I'm like, Debbie's in Texas.
Right. Yeah.
They feel like she's like part of the family already, right? So it just goes to show that this experience actually, it's improving our NPS scores, which we measure in our practice, right? Mm-hmm. It's improving the patient experience. It's improving the clinical oversight, not taking away from it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, I love hearing this story. I've got docs that are using Grin in their practices, and I know would not change. I mean, it is definitely, I can see it from a consultant side, what it's doing for patient experience, what it's doing for workflow. And I would just, encourage docs who are out there maybe on the fence and saying, can I really do this? How hard is this to do? To reach out, because this is, I'm going to say it one more time, this is where the future of orthodontics is going. This is what our patients are asking for and wanting. And as much as we think that they want to be in our office every 6 weeks, their time is valuable, just like our time is valuable. And I think just tools that give them an extra level of, comfort and give them their time back, but yet make them still feel as connected or more connected is really what that patient experience is going to continue to evolve towards as we're moving along. So as we're kind of finishing up and wrapping up here, if you were to give, you've been giving us dropping bombs and giving us pearls the whole time, but if you were to say, hey, here's a couple takeaways of what I think you guys need to know. Is there, again, you've been just giving us all kinds of just meat and potatoes here, but what would you say if you were to tell somebody, if you're going to do one thing or two things to move towards this direction, what should they be doing?
Well, so first of all, get out of your own head about it's going to be difficult to implement and my team is going to hate it, because what actually happens is the team freaking loves it, because your 6 o'clock days are ending at 5:45 instead of 6:15, right? So, and I'll even say in my practice, my 100 patient days went down to 50 visit days. My clinical appointments decreased by over 50%. We're cutting columns out of our schedule. We're more profitable. So the team actually starts loving it, especially with HI. We're not putting it on the team, right? The team needs to know about it and understand it, but we're not putting any extra effort on them. So number one, get out of our own heads about that it's going to rock the boat. It's actually only going to improve things. Pull the trigger. But when you go in, to also understand that the way I built this out, and the way I built it out even from a pricing perspective, is such that it makes sense when your practice goes in this direction. This isn't just an aligner tool. It's not just a monitoring tool. This is a new patient experience. This is a new, it's a patient management platform is what I keep on coming back to. And that if you utilize it the right way, every single one of our doctors that are utilizing it in this way are reporting back phenomenal numbers. We're going to have a whole bunch of white papers coming out, reducing appointments by over 40% on average, increasing their revenue, increasing new patient starts because of the remote consults and the differentiators and everything else that we talked about. It's just a matter of, I wanted to make sure it was something that it's not just for aligners or just for this or just for that. This is the way we practice now. And you just said it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. This is where we're moving towards. People ask me all the time about competition and competitors and things like that. And the one thing I say is, I don't care. It's like what Dr. Kravitz always says, colleagues, not competitors. As long as orthodontists as a whole are realizing that we need to move towards this journey, we at least are going to insulate ourselves again from the Smile Direct Clips and all that other.
Absolutely.
The next wave of whatever it is that comes out, because now we're talking to the patient the way they want to be spoken to. So I'm happy when doctors get it and are moving on board with whatever platform. from our perspective, I just built it out from the ground up, ease of use for the patients, ease of use for the practice and the doctor, because I understand what it takes to implement something in the practice. And I understand how something works and can be efficient and valuable within that practice.
Right, right. So again, that KISS principle, it should be easy all the way around, from implementation to use in the practice, to patient experience. That's great. So if somebody wants to get a hold of Grin, they're like, all right, I think it's time. We're going to move into a slower month as we hit the end of the year. Why not now? Why not think about using? And that's what I tell docs all the time is, when we have those slow months, those are the times that we should be looking for implementation. Use your slow months to do the things that you've always wanted to do. Don't do this in the middle of July. Do this maybe when we're heading in and our teams are maybe kind of slowing down a little bit, looking for things. So they want to get a hold of you. What's the best way that somebody could get a hold of you or Grin, the team out there?
On our website, www.get-grin.com, there's right in the corner on the right is click if you're a doctor, and right there you can ask for information. I love giving out my own email address as well. Doctors can hit me up to talk about how I've implemented or clinical or whatever. And it's just adam@get-grin.com. So either one works. I'm always happy to talk to anybody about it. Like you just said, you're 100% right. December, the holidays, people complain about, our competition is the Christmas gifts and things like that. It's similar to what you said before. You have your days that you work in your practice and you have your days that you work on your practice.
Yep.
December is a phenomenal time to do that and have up and running by January, fluid, so that, you don't miss a beat. And now your next 2023 can, all of these things that we talked about, reducing a lot of these appointments, cleaning up the crap out of your schedule, increasing your revenue, all of that. I mean, that makes for, especially heading into what we're all talking about with the recession, this could be a very, very good time to start looking at things like this.
Yeah. And think about this, everyone's out there. We're struggling with employees right now. You may not have to replace that employee that decides that they're ready to make a change. Something like this could make that difference. When we talk about plastic employees, changing it from payroll to a different place on your P&L. I mean, this is that opportunity that maybe we're looking for as well. Well, Adam, thank you so much. Gosh, this was amazing information. I know once again, you've just, you've just given us such good information. So if you've been listening to the Hey Docs podcast, you know that I like to finish up with a little speed round. Are you ready for a speed round with Jill?
Sure. Let's do this.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Yes. How about, exactly. Let's cheers the coffee, right? How about, do you have a favorite book?
Oh my goodness, so many. No, truly, orthodontists love, management books and things that are life-changing. Instead of a book, what I'm going to say is get yourself Blinkist. Okay. Blinkist is an app that will take those books and distill it down to blinks. So this way.
Oh, I love it.
Right. I mean, you have 5 minutes, boom, you can grab a blink, which is a main concept for a book. And they break like a book that's 200 pages down into 5 pages just to get the core concepts. Blinkist.
Oh, I love that. And I'm a huge Audible. I get, by the end of the day, I'm like, I can't put my eyes on a screen, and I'm a screen, I don't do physical books anymore. And so I'm a big Audible. That is going on my list. Good. I love that. All right. How about, do you have a favorite outdoor activity?
I'm a huge snowboarder, for those that know me. So wintertime is coming. I'm already looking at snow blowing in various different places and getting crazy excited.
I was just in Keystone last week, and they were already putting snow up. Well, actually, Breckenridge, they're putting snow up on the slopes up there. So I'm sure you'll be making your way to Colorado at some point this year. If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Whenever people talk about me, they talk about my passion. My passion for orthodontics is a huge one. From the very beginning, whether like people used to call me the lingual guy, right? It wasn't even about being the lingual guy. It was about to me at the time, lingual was the savior of orthodontics when, plastic was in the early days coming out and all the other things were happening. I have such a passion for what we do. We dramatically change people's lives. Oftentimes when I'll be lecturing, I will take a second and say, guys, we're always fighting about different things. And then, talking about, okay, we got to get efficient. We got to get, even the things we were talking about today, it always comes back to the patient. We should always pause at the end of the day and think about even one patient and how we've changed their lives.
Yes.
Because we really, really do. And sometimes we don't stop and remember that.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great. And then to finish it up, if you could say the best piece of advice that I've ever received.
Wow.
I know. What a speed round, huh?
I'm going to say that never stop learning, that there's, you can always learn more, which goes along with there is no such a thing as perfect, right? Perfection is the enemy of good. And that each and every one of us can still continue to move and learn and grow.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Adam, again, thank you so much for being a part of Hey Docs. I know that my audience is just going to be eating up everything that you're saying, and I'm just going to leave it for everyone out there. Now is the time. If you've been thinking about it, reach out. Now's the time to really change maybe where your practice is going to go in 2024. So again, thank you so much. Adam Schulhof, Grin founder and CEO, combines more than 2 decades of orthodontic expertise, which includes pioneering the latest innovations in orthodontic technology. Grin is a comprehensive digital platform that provides solutions for all types of teeth straightening and oral health needs while keeping professionals in the treatment loop. As CEO, Adam guides Grin's orthodontic vision, oversees appliance creation, and spearheads industry partnerships. Before establishing Grin, Adam founded 2 businesses, Kinder Smiles and the Schulhof Center. These practices specialized in lingual braces, clear aligners, and other custom orthodontic treatments. In addition to Grin, Adam serves as a clinical instructor and gives lectures worldwide on experimental orthodontic procedures. A true innovator, Adam holds multiple orthodontic patents and is a co-creator of the 3M Incognito Light Appliance System for lingual braces. Adam earned his DMD from the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey and a DMD in orthodontics from the Columbia University College of Dental Medicine.